Sarah, how do you handle internal project challenges like burnout or like a team conflict while still maintaining that trust and collaboration within your team?
Yeah, on my team specifically, proactive communication really helps us mitigate a lot of those project challenges. Our industry just has a lot of fluctuations in workload specifically. So I try to communicate when we can anticipate some of those higher volumes coming up. People are, mentally prepared for it a little bit.
Leading a team through tough times is like steering a ship through stormy seas on AEC projects. You need to keep your crew safe, motivated, working together. But what happens when the pressure mounts and trust starts to fray? It's a challenge that many project managers face. When your team sees you making hard decisions, ones that might impact job security or project outcomes, they may start to wonder, are you leading for their good or just trying to stay afloat? In this episode, I'm happy to have with me Sarah Zarzecki, licensed PE, PMP, Transportation Design Department Manager at Stanley Consultants. You may remember Sarah from her insightful episode on our Women in Engineering podcast. Today, she's joining us again, this time to share how she's led project teams through adversity in the AEC space. From navigating burnout to aligning multi-generational teams and delivering under tight deadlines. Sarah opens up about what it takes to lead with strength and empathy, and also gratitude. We'll explore how she builds resilience, fosters collaboration, and helps her team stay grounded, even when the pressure is on. If you're a project manager facing internal or external challenges and wondering how to keep your team aligned, motivated, and also inspired, well, this episode is for you. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. All right, well, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Sarah Zarzecki is a licensed professional engineer and a PMP. She's also the Transportation Design Department Manager at Stanley Consulting. Sarah, welcome to the AEC Project Management Podcast.
Thanks, Anthony.
So to start us off, Sarah, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about kind of your background and kind of what inspired you to get into transportation engineering and kind of, climb up the leadership ladder in that discipline at Stanley.
Okay. Yep. Great. Happy to. Growing up, I had a real natural ability for problem solving, and I really enjoyed math and science. Like most engineers, I think, start that that introduction. When I was in high school, I had a drafting class, the old kind with drafting boards and T-squares. And I really liked seeing how those elements and building blocks went into just building things. It led me to explore more about engineering. I wasn't sure which part. I had participated in STEM programs at a couple of universities, and I found a love of civil engineering because I could actively see how those contributed to the world around me. During summer breaks, I worked for the Michigan Department of Transportation in an inspection role. So I was testing subgrades and climbing in and out of trenches, surveying, checking quantities, and really just seeing all the pieces and parts of transportation engineering. And that really verified that that was the path that I wanted to go down. So my civil engineering degree had an emphasis in transportation. My whole career has been in transportation engineering in Colorado, blending a lot of the aspects of roadway design, traffic engineering, and the multidisciplinary elements that also lead to project management. So I've done intersections, roadways, highways, multidisciplinary facilities, utility relocations, and just other things that require coordination as well. I had really always aspired to be kind of in that project manager and team leader role. Collaboration is one of my core values. And working with clients, project stakeholders, and understanding the local market was really a natural fit for that skill set for me. At Stanley, my previous supervisor and mentor had the opportunity to advance. And so I was given the opportunity to kind of take on that local team and leadership role. And I've been working in that capacity for the last 5 years.
That's great. That's awesome. And you mentioned the word collaboration, which we know is so critical when it comes to project management. So let's talk about that a little bit. In your experience, Sarah, managing, AEC projects, how do you align multi-generational project teams, from early career
Mhm.
engineers to seasoned professionals, kind of all working together, but how do you align them towards like the common project goals and outcomes from your experience?
Yeah. My team has both of the extremes. So we've got the early career and then we've got the 40 plus years of experience. So really kind of seeing the both sides and we really just appreciate the gifts that both sides bring to it. There's a lot of communication, but also on our team, a lot of mutual respect for that. And you have to kind of build those clear expectations. It is anticipated that you would ask the questions and understand and really try to get those perspectives, capture the ideas, but lean on the seasoned professionals and the invaluable experience that they can bring, the deep understanding of our industry and the standards. When we have stuff come up, I'm like, but have you asked the person? We have a really inclusive environment where everybody feels valued. We have a lot of regular team meetings where everybody goes around and people have the opportunity to chime in and ask the different questions, and that really helps. So kind of by recognizing and leveraging those strengths of each generation, we've been able to have like a culture of continuous improvement and learning and making sure that we're capturing that valuable experience and having that be part of our training.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I really like the approach of, being grateful for what the other team members can bring to the table and kind of understanding that, I may be better at one thing,
Mhm.
Sarah may be better at a different thing, and another person on the team might be better at a different thing. And I think to have projects run successfully, you really need to have a team that has kind of blended strengths or different strengths
Mhm.
so that you can have a more, you know, diverse group of skill sets and perspectives and, put them all together to best serve the clients. And I think that, we don't want to get caught up in this idea of, I need to be the best person on the team, and I got to move up my career. And,
Right.
it's more about like teamwork.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, how do you handle internal project challenges like burnout or like a team conflict while still maintaining that trust and collaboration within your team?
Yeah. On my team specifically, proactive communication really helps us mitigate a lot of those project challenges. Our industry just has a lot of fluctuations and workload specifically. So I try to communicate when we can anticipate some of those higher volumes coming up. So people are, mentally prepared for it a little bit and able to like dig in and know when the effort will level off again. And then, we kind of all feel like we're doing it together. So like, if they're staying late, I'm staying late too. So, just kind of also making sure that they see that we're able to work on it all together, the teamwork aspect. It's also important to take advantage of some of the lighter workload times and do things that, bring more joy in our life. And Colorado is really amazing for that. A lot of my team, on the weekend, they're definitely doing all of the skiing, hiking, camping, and those things. And balancing that out makes our time on the job more focused.
That's great. I like that a lot. And I really like what you said there about being proactive because I think that we have to accept the fact that challenges are going to happen
Hmm.
within our project teams. Like you said, in our industry, things happen on projects. Not every project is going to go smoothly. I mean, you can make a case that no project is going to go smoothly, or else it wouldn't, you wouldn't need like project management to the level that we need it. So
Hmm.
I think as a project manager, understanding that there's going to be some bumps in the road and then being proactive with your team is a very important way to make those things a little bit easier to deal with as they come. And also, I think what you talked about in terms of, kind of workload and resourcing and getting a feel for that is really important too. I mean, I think a lot of people are burnt out in the industry today
Hmm.
because of all of the infrastructure work that's available. And it becomes even more important for firm leadership and the project managers to do a really good job of resourcing these projects effectively so that people can kind of stay the course, and make it through.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely see that. You had also asked a little bit about, how do you also deal with some other like team conflict challenges? And, we've experienced that too. Every team has. And I think my approach specifically is really just to work and listen and understand. It's easier when the reporting structure is clear. So if both parties are on my team, you can understand the different perspectives and how to bring those skill sets into alignment and further expand on, you know, both people are really important to me and to our team, and that's helped us work through it. When conflicts are, at a little bit of a higher level or the reporting structures are different, that can get a little bit blurry. And then, you have to reach up. You need to be able to understand that, senior leaders are also there and they can bring in other resources. And it's also important for my team to see that I'm able to do that and that people are able to help us out kind of from a broader perspective too.
Yeah, that's great. And again, I really like I think a little bit of a running theme on some of your answers has been having that real approach of like a gratitude approach of like, if there's a conflict, let's remember that we're grateful for this person because of what they brought to this team in the past or project in the past, even though we're having a little rough
Yeah.
situation going on right now in the moment, and I think that can help you to, listen, it's like a family, like,
Yeah.
like you have arguments that happen and then you kind of get over it and you smooth things out. And I think on any highly operating team, efficient team, you're going to have things like that. And the project manager is responsible, of course, for helping to work through those. And that's why I think your people skills and project management are just as important as your ability to scope, schedule, and budget your projects,
Absolutely.
essentially.
Or maybe more so.
Right. Maybe more so, probably more so. So, Sarah, do you have an example maybe that you can share of a challenging project, whether it was due to internal pressures or external disruptions, and how maybe you helped the team adapt and kind of stay on track in a challenging situation?
Yeah. So I've been working on a project now. It's been on again, off again in some capacity since 2018. So we've advanced a lot of different pieces and parts and have really stayed adaptable for the client. We've seen a lot of different changes in project permitting constraints, client leadership, funding. There's just been a lot of fluctuations. So we have found that like executing in smaller contracts has made this the most effective for the client, executing what they need right now, but don't preclude where it might go, keeping an understanding of the overall goal, to build the project and why we're there in the first place. So we're doing a lot to get answers to position us for the future. It can be a lot more disruptive from a workload standpoint, picking it up and putting it down. But we have been the constant in the equation on the project for the client. They, like I had mentioned, they've just had a lot of different changes too. So in the end, we're the ones with the institutional knowledge and tracking all the decision making. So what we've done is we really, document what we need for right now, all your decisions, where you left off, what was outstanding. And then we've kind of made a joke, write down what we need to know for our future selves so that we can remember when we pick it back up. But as consultants, it's what we do, we execute and then we pivot to the next thing. So, my team has just, for that project, they know we're going to execute this piece. It's probably going to have another pause or disruption, but do what we need to right now, go to the next thing, know that we'll come back.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that it is important to remember that as the project manager, you know, you are that kind of steadying, consistent person that's there for
Mhm.
the client, that's there for your team, right? You're kind of like that middle
Yeah.
person between everybody, making sure that things stay on track type of thing. And that's a big role, right? On a project that's multi-million dollar project where
Mhm.
you have a lot of stakeholders, internal and external, and they're revolving kind of around you, right? And your ability to keep things moving. And so again, I know we've mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but that's why I think your ability to interact with people effectively through highs and lows of a project are really important. And if you want to become a very successful project manager, especially when you're up and coming, you really need to pay attention to some of the people around you. Maybe you have a mentor and, in these situations and how they handle them, because I think there isn't like a textbook for that per se, but it's really either going through them yourself or maybe being present when other people are going through them and kind of seeing how different project managers can handle some of these situations. Because I think Sarah said it well, in that you're kind of that steadying force, right,
Yeah.
for the project, and you can kind of calm things down, and you will probably need to multiple times.
Yep.
So something else I want to ask you about, Sarah, that happens often on AEC projects. We have tight timelines, tight deadlines, and you want to keep it on schedule. But what happens is the project quality, right, or the team's well-being can be compromised if we're trying to push towards a deadline that's maybe not very realistic or, overly optimistic, you might say.
Hmm.
Sometimes people might cut out quality control or they might have people work more than they should. So I'm just wondering like how you make judgment calls when it comes down to situations like that, where there are some things that could be at risk that you really don't want to put at risk.
Right. So much of what we do is really a judgment call. We make so many decisions throughout the day, and we're always balancing something. So, making decisions confidently and communicating through the process really helps calm some of that turbulence as well. Projecting confidence provides stability. What it is important though, like when you make the wrong call, owning it, that's more important. For us, quality is key. So it's really about how you get the repeat work and you kind of build your reputation. So if there's reasons things might not be up to a certain level, it's really just important for that to be communicated. Can you provide parts of documentation to get the answer? Usually things are, it's built around funding or, what's your cost estimate? A certain element needs to be reviewed, and that's like the critical path there. So are there pieces that you can execute and then follow up with the rest? Can you pull in external resources? All of those options need to be considered on a case by case basis, but you can't just ditch a QA QC process. Parts of that need to happen. Something might have to give, and really it's about communicating. If you're clear and upfront with the client on where you are and what you're trying to get to, a lot of times, they can reinforce what's most important to them, and you can execute that and then complete the rest.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times will be a balancing act,
Hmm.
or there's ups and downs on your projects, and there are just things that you can't really, compromise on, right?
Right.
Like the quality and safety of your projects. And that's where I think the PM can really come into play and say, hey, listen, I get it. We might go over schedule by a week, but we're going to have to work this out, talk to the client, get a little more time to get these done the right way. And I think, Sarah, you said probably one of the most important things in terms of if you want to think about the success of an organization is in the AEC world, like 80 to 90% of people's work is typically repeat business.
Hmm.
So if you're sacrificing on the quality of work and your client has a really bad experience, it's going to be a lot more costly than being a couple of weeks late on one project. And to me, that brings it back to focus and reminds people why it's so important that we put out the highest quality work that we can.
Hmm.
So one of the things about being a project manager in the AEC industry, Sarah, is we deal with problems all day long.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what are some ways that you can help your team to really foster a solutions focused mindset,
Hmm.
especially when morale might be low or there's problems happening on your project? Because I think we don't want to get caught in that problematic mindset all the time. We need to be solutions
Hmm.
focused. What can you offer on that?
Yeah. I think I just have to take a step back and say, control what we can control,
Right.
focus on the work that we do and the relationships that we formed. You've kind of mentioned earlier that, part of it feels like a family. And so that is a lot of times, why people are coming into the office or, coming in and doing what they do. In addition, to the work that we do for the good of the world, it's really about the people we enjoy being with. So, just take a step back and look at that. Look for some little wins. And some days those just might be donuts.
Yeah. Right. But it's something. Yeah. No, it's again, it comes back to understanding that part of projects in our industry means that things go wrong. I mean, you can't do a project the size of the projects we work on
Hmm.
and not have problems, but we also need to be solution focused and say, hey, this is a problem. It also may present an opportunity for us, right? And having a way that you approach it. So A little bit on the personal side, in terms of you
Mm.
personally as a project manager, I'm curious about what habits or frameworks maybe have helped you to kind of build resilience or stay effective through a long or high stress project or project cycle, multiple projects, because it can be stressful for the PM. I'm wondering if there's anything you can share about how you deal with that.
Yeah, my when I'm most successful and I feel like I'm chunking through those things, it's really about breaking down my goals into much smaller, achievable, manageable tasks, staying focused and motivated on those when everything else, kind of seems bigger and daunting. I prioritize regular check-ins with my team. I do have multiple mentors and they all bring different pieces and parts. So some of it is kind of venting, some of it feels like therapy, but having, people that understand the industry, they've been there, done that, for me has been really helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think anytime you can come back, step back for a minute, right? Look at the whole project, break it down. It's just helpful. You can wrap your head around it a little bit easier. We do that here at EMI a lot. If we're working on a big learning and development program and we're getting a little bit overwhelmed, we can just step back. Maybe it's almost like it's really project management. It's almost like creating a work breakdown structure,
Mhm.
really breaking things down, maybe doing a Gantt chart with it. So you could say, okay, we can handle this. It's not as big as it feels when you just start talking about that one big thing. So that could be, I think, very helpful from a stress perspective for sure.
Mhm.
All right. So now it's time for our final question here, Sarah. We call it the PM pitfalls question. What would you say is maybe one of the bigger pitfalls that you see project managers deal with in this industry? And how would you recommend either overcoming it or avoiding it or minimizing it for the PMs that are listening today?
I found that the biggest pitfall that I experience is change management, and really changes are constant. So, changes from the clients, funding, project managers, priorities, new people coming in, looking at things differently. And we experience changes on our side too, staffing, different teaming partners, things that come in that might change. Really, documentation is the key, doing it while you go along. A lot of times those things are documented in writing in our emails and that kind of stuff, but when you have to go back and sometimes pull those things together, I feel like sometimes it's like forensic accounting, going through and figuring out when this happened, who said what, why. And so if you can get those things in like a running log and a change management log, being proactive, documenting as you go along, sets you up for success and support further down the road if you need to get to a point where you have to modify scope or contract language. A lot of times you have those things agreed upon as you go, and then you get to the end and it's more impactful, or you've swapped out some of those things. So just being able to really present and document how you got to where you are has been really helpful for us.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, if you can deal with change as a project manager, I almost feel like that's half the battle
Mhm.
because, like you said, the only constant is change from day one of your project until the end of your project. And in fact, you reminded me when you were talking about that. I had a conversation not too long ago with the chief engineer for one of the DOTs, and he recommended a book to me called Leading Change by John Cotter, which I read, and it was an excellent book. And it talks all about this idea, since COVID and like everything that's gone on in the world, like everything is changing like all
Mhm.
the time, right? And if you want to be a great leader, and in this case, a great project manager, like you're suggesting, that ability to deal with change and navigate change is so important. So I would definitely agree with that. And I would say for those of you listening, again, it's probably one of those things like we talked about earlier, where there isn't maybe like a textbook per se on it, but as you get through more projects, you're going to experience change. You're going to know how to deal with them. You're going to watch other people. But I think something that Sarah said earlier could also apply here, like a lot of documentation, right? A lot of follow up with people when changes happen on your project, scope changes, schedule changes, so that if you do need to address it, you kind of have all the information you need in front of you, and it can be helpful for you to kind of navigate it and put together kind of the best plan to flex with that change, if you will, because you're going to have to flex with a lot of change as a project manager in our industry. That's for sure. So once again, Sarah Zarzecki. Sarah has given us some really valuable time here. She's a licensed professional engineer. She's a PMP, and she's the Transportation Design Department Manager at Stanley Consultants. Sarah, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the AEC Project Management Podcast.
Happy to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Sarah. She is an awesome project manager, and I'm so happy that she shared some of her insights with us. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our channel here. We do put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineering professionals become better project managers and better leaders. I'll see you next week.